Hey guys, how's it going? Inspired here. In this video I want to show you how to change the appearance and the name of your starting companions in Sacred Underworld, as well as how to get a starting companion for characters that do not normally have one. That is for the Dwarf, for the Demon, and for the Seraphim. Before we begin, a bit of a disclaimer. I've only tested it for Sacred Gold from Steam, so if your version of the game is not Sacred Gold from Steam, I'm not sure if it will work, even though I think it should probably work for any version of Sacred with the Underworld add-on installed. Still, you will have to test for yourself and see if it works for you, if your version of the game is not from Steam. Okay, first things first, we will need a hex editor. I recommend HXD because it's free, it's fairly simple to use, and it will be more than enough for everything that we're about to do here. You can download HXD by going to Google and type in download HXD. One of the first links will be the link to the official website. You can go there, find the download section, and download HXD in the language of your choice. For example, we can download it in English here. It will be downloaded to your PC. Just install it as you would any other program and proceed from there. After you've downloaded and installed HXD, put a shortcut to it somewhere that you can access it easily. For example, I have it here on my desktop. After this, let's go to the Sacred Underworld main game folder. For me, it's inside the Steam folder. For you, it might be different depending on where you installed it to. Inside the game folder, let's find the bin folder. Click it, and you will see that there are several subfolders here named after the game's playable characters. So now we will need to decide which character's companion we will be changing. For example, let's start with a Dark Elf. Okay, so here we have the folder named after the Dark Elf. Let's double click it. And here we have several other files. So we will need to edit the funccode.bin file. And before making any changes to it, what I recommend doing is just Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. This will create a copy of this file that you can use as a backup to restore the file from if you mess up something. Alright, so here we have our backup, and let's proceed to actual editing. Let's drag this funccode.bin file to HXD, and this will open it in hex editor. Now this might look a bit scary if you never used hex editor before, but don't worry, I'll walk you through each and every step of this tutorial. Just repeat what I'm doing. At this point you will want to go to the Sacred modding sheet that I've created. I will put the link to it in the description of this video. And in the Sacred modding sheet you need to choose the Companions tab. So you will see several tabs here. Maybe the first one won't be Companions tab, I'm not sure. But if it's not, just choose the Companions tab. So here on the Companions tab you will see 4 characters: Battle Mage, Dark Elf, Wood Elf, and Vampiress. And for each of these characters there are several addresses or offsets, as they are called in hex editing. So if we are changing the companion for Dark Elf, first we will be editing the companion's model. So here we have Dark Elf. Here we have the address for the model of the Dark Elf companion. What we will do is we will copy it with Ctrl-C. Now we go back to the hex editor and press Ctrl-G. So it will open the go-to window, and here we will press Ctrl-V to paste our offset or address. And make sure that it says here hex. Also, one more important thing is your offsets here on the left, they need to be in hex. If you see that they're in decimal, then you will need to go to View, Offset Base, and choose hexadecimal here. Okay, now again we press Ctrl-G, Ctrl-V to paste our offset here. Make sure that it's hex here, and we click OK. Okay, now we see that the hex editor put our mouse cursor here where it says 8600. Okay, what does it mean? It basically means that our character's model has this ID 8600. So what do we need to do to change it? Let's head back to the Sacred Modding Google Sheet and choose the Characters tab here. And here you can find the IDs for all the characters in the game. As you can see, there are about 470 characters in the game. That is base models for characters. Alright, so what we need to do now is we need to decide which model we want our new companion to have. For example, let's see, why not have an ice elf for our companion, right? Sounds good. So what we need to do now is we need to copy the hex ID of this character from this column, which is ID hex, right? So that would be for the ice elf, that would be 8C00. Okay, let's copy it, Control C. Let's head back to the hex editor and let's put the cursor here right before it says 86. Okay, and now this is very important stuff. You shouldn't press Control V here, you should press Control B. All right, because if we press Control V, what happens? Like, look, I will press Control V. The hex editor will add this new ID before before the previous one, right? And we don't want that to happen because this will mess up our file. So now I will press Control Z to quickly cancel it, and now I press Control B. So you need to press Control B to change your IDs if you copy and paste them. Okay, and what you also can do is you can put the cursor here and you can right click and select paste right. So Control B is basically paste right. So that ensures that our file size remains the same and that the new ID overwrites the previous one. Okay, now let's save our file and head into the game to see if anything has changed. All right, let's launch the game. Okay, now we go to the Enchera campaign and choose the Dark Elf. Let's see if anything has changed. Okay, skip the intro. Oh yeah, as you can see, our companion's model has changed to an Ice Elf, although the name has stayed the same. And if you want to keep the previous name, if you want to, for example, to have an Ice Elf whose name is Megal Carven, then you can pretty much leave it at this and you can just play from here. So let's just talk to this character. The Ice Elf joins us and it becomes our companion, and it behaves pretty much in the same way as the Wood Elf companion behaved previously. So let's see if we can give him some weapon. Let's give him a torch. Yeah, he can use a torch. Let's see if he actually attacks our enemies with a torch. Yeah, so the companion works now and you can proceed playing from here. Alright, now that we've changed our companion's appearance, let's also change their name. Let's open a function called bin in HXD. Let's go to the Sacred Modding Sheet, to the Companions tab. Here in the Dark Elf role, let's copy this address in the name1 column. Control C. We go to HXD, Control G, Control V to paste it here. Okay. Alright, so we found the address where the name ID for companion is stored. So let's copy this ID to an empty text file in a notepad or any other text editor of your choice. And now we will need to choose a new name for our companion. So in the Sacred Modding Sheet, in the Names tab, there's a bunch of names that you can use for your companion. And here's an important thing here that you need to understand is basically all those names belong to existing characters in the game. Well, mostly all of those names, because there are some unused names that you can also use, and those would be easier. But most of those names are already belong to other characters in the game. For example, I've found this name, Peter, and I want my ice elf companion to be named Peter, right? So what I need to do now is I need to ensure that no other character in the game is named Peter. Why do I need to do that? Because the game uses these name IDs in the script commands, right? So, for example, if there is a Peter character, if there is actually a Peter character in the game, I don't remember, but I think there should be one, right? If his name is here. So if there's actually a Peter character in the game, then probably the chances are there are some scripts associated with him. And if we go near that character with our companion, who's also named Peter, and initiate those scripts, then chances are those scripts also apply to our companion. And this might lead to situations like, for example, your companion might just stop following you, they might attack you, they might disappear, or whatever, depending on the new name that you choose for them. So what we need to do now is, like I said, we need to ensure no other character in the game uses this same ID that we will be given to our companion. So we do this by copying this ID, Control C to copy it back to HXD. Now we need to scroll all the way to the top of the file, and this is very important. Be sure to do that, and be sure to put your mouse cursor here at the very beginning. Alright, and now we press Ctrl R to open the replace window, and we will need to search for our name ID, for the new name ID that we chose for our companion, in this case Peter, right? 17218. So we paste it here, and in the replace with we paste the previous ID of our companion, in this case 17459, which is Miguel Carvin's name ID. So let's paste it here, and we click replace all. Okay, so HXD tells us that it replaced 5 occurrences of this name ID. What this means is that whenever the game, whenever there is this Peter character in the game, then from now on this Peter character will be named Miguel Carvin. This might be a little bit immersion breaking, but I don't know, to me it seems like not such a big deal, and a rather small price to pay for having a cool character, or rather of having a cool companion following you, right? So you can skip this step, and depending on the name that you chose, this might be okay. But like I said, if you skip this step, there might be a situation where your companion will just stop following you because or some other things will happen, like they might attack you, etc. Because the game has a scripting command that says make the character with this name ID hostile to the player or stop following the player, whatever. And now let's actually go and apply this name ID to our companion. So back to Companions tab, let's copy this again, Control C, HXD, Control G, Control V to paste it. Alright, so this is our companion's name ID. Let's apply the new name ID here. Control C, back to HXD, and put the cursor here. And remember that we cannot press Control V here because this will essentially increase the file size and the file will get corrupted and all kinds of bad things will happen. So I will now Control Z to cancel it. And here we will need to press Control B, right? Or we can right click here and choose Paste Right, which is the same as pressing Control B. Okay, now let's save the file and see if there are any changes in the game. Let's launch the game. And start the Ankara campaign as the Dark Elf. Okay, skip the intro, skip tutorial. Alright, so here's our Ice Elf companion, and what's his name? Yeah, his name is Peter. Looks like it worked, right? So let's talk to him. Oh wow, nothing happens, right? Peter doesn't follow us. Why is that? Let's find out. Alright, so the reason for Peter not following us is actually very simple. It's because we changed the character's name, right? But we haven't changed the scripting command that says make the character with this name ID follow the player. So what we need to do now is we need to make one additional change that says make Peter a follower of the player, right? So let's open the func code bin again in HXD. Then we go to Sacred Modding Sheet, to the Companions tab, and in the Dark Elf row there's a name2 column. So let's copy the address from here, Control C, back to HXD, Control G, Control V to paste it. Okay, alright, so here we have the name2 address, and we will need to paste Peter's name ID here. So let's go to names, let's copy Peter's name ID, Control C, back to HXD, and again we press Control B, not Control V, right? Control B. Okay, let's save the file and see if this works now. Launching the game again. Starting on carrier campaign as the Dark Elf. Skipping all that stuff, and let's talk to Peter. So now we have Peter following us, and let's see one more thing. Yeah, a good thing here is that we actually follow the main quest and talk to Commander Ramata here. As you know, normally a companion would leave you here at this point, but since we haven't changed the scripting command that says make the companion with this ID stop following the player, basically now Peter follows us forever. And I think he's also definitely immortal, just like your original companion. So yeah, you can basically play the whole game and have Peter by your side. A quick note here about the Vampiress and the Gladiator characters. If you want to change the starting companion for the Vampiress, you will need to change the name 3 times. So the process is exactly the same, but you will just need to make one additional change for the name. And as far as the Gladiator goes, I just wasn't able to figure out all the changes necessary to replace the Gladiator's companion. So for the Gladiator, you will need to do the same thing that I will explain in a second about changing the companions for the Dwarf, the Demon, and the Seraphim characters. If you want to get a starting companion for the Dwarf, the Demon, and the Seraphim characters, all you need to do is go to the game folder, bin folder, and here we will need to basically swap one of the folders for the characters who have companions with the folder for the character who does not have a companion. For example, now that we've added a cool new companion for the Dark Elf, what we can do is we can Control C, Control V to make a copy of the Dark Elf folder, and let's also make a backup of the Demon folder. For example, if we want to get this new companion for the Demon, right? So let's Control C, Control V. This one is just to make a backup, and now we copy the name of this folder, Control C, let's delete it, and let's rename the Dark Elf copy folder with the original Demon name folder, or rather the original Demon folder name. Okay, that's all we need to do. Now let's launch the game and see if the Demon has a companion. Okay, starting the Ankara campaign, Demon. Yeah, basically, as you can see, what it does, what this swapping of folders does, is that it replaced the demon start with the dark elf start. So now we have our Peter waiting for us here. We can talk to him and he joins us. Alright guys, that's it. I might do a couple more sacred modding tutorials later, so stay tuned for those, and thanks for watching.